Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I have a review of Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami. Kafka on the Shore follows the character of Kafka, a young man who runs away from home and ends up staying in a library, and the parallel storyline of a man called Nakata who can speak to cats. And because he can speak to cats, and because he is seen as having some sort of learning difficulties, a lot of people pay him to go out and find their missing cats. I imagine you could say that for the character of Kafka this is a coming-of-age story, and for the character of Nakata it is really just some sort of crime noir detective story. I've tried to get into this book many times before, and each time I have never been able to get past the first chapter, The Boy Named Crow, or however it goes. And with this reading, I was going through the second shelf down again, and I was picking up books, reading a few chapters, and seeing whether I still wanted to read them because I'm looking to minimise how many books I have on my shelves. And I actually finally managed to get into reading this book and thought that I want to read Murakami at some point. I have the book here, so I thought I may as well do it. And I did it. I know that he is a lauded after writer, but personally I don't understand why. I don't believe that the book is doing anything new or different. To me, it is just urban fantasy fiction that has been published under this guise of being literary fiction because there are critics out there who are too afraid to admit that urban fantasy is a respectable genre. When I was reading this book, I was constantly being reminded of American Gods by Neil Gaiman, and I don't mean it as a bad thing. I don't think that it's as profound, philosophical or life-changing as other people make out Murakami to be. A lot of people say that there is a really strange mystery in here. In fact, when I went back and read afterwards about the book, it said about Murakami answering reader questions upon the release of the book and saying how much he wanted people to go back with this book and reread it and unravel the web he'd woven for themselves, but I didn't believe that there was too big of a web to unravel. I felt like we had some very clear answers to questions. I thought that the intertextual elements were very heavy-handed. Kafka seemed to be much like Pip in Great Expectations, or some of these other characters in classic fiction who go off and find themselves by travelling. Nakata, he did follow this almost like the classic golden age era of crime. He felt like he was just going in and solving a crime that happened to have a paranormal aspect to it, which gave off this sense that it could be something like an Alfred Hitchcock film, or it could have this darkness of past horror stories. And whilst these elements work well, and I enjoyed the fact that you had Colonel Saunders there as some sort of spirit, and I can't remember who the other guy was, but you had him as well. Whilst I believed that they added something to the whole paranormal aspect of the story, I don't really think that it was that difficult to understand. And I understand again that people are saying that there are postmodern elements to the book, and yes, they are there, but are they really done as well or pushed as far as other people have pushed them? No. Murakami is a fine writer, I just don't believe that he is this master storyteller, and I feel a lot of the time that his metaphors were very heavy-handed, and I disliked where he would take time out to tell you his point and force the point home, and there was this inconsistency with The Boy Called Crow that I didn't feel was necessary to the plot. I also don't feel like the characters are that well formed. Most of Murakami's characters did feel like they were just tools for him to use to be able to tell this story, and that is definitely something that a lot of writers do, but I feel like although when writers are writing characters, they are using them as tools to tell their story, they are able to fill the characters with enough personality and individuality that the reader is able to respect them as an actual fully formed human, really, and I didn't get that with any of his characters. Each of them felt very one-dimensional and very like, you had Kafka who was running away from something and had forgotten something. You had Nikata who had learning difficulties and could speak to cats. You had the old lady whose name I can't remember now, who made music in the past and it has been spurned by some sort of long lost lover, and this in a similar style to Miss Havisham, which was where I saw the intertextual thing of Great Expectations within this book. And then you had the possible transgender character within this book, which I felt had only been put in there so that Murakami could talk about feminism, and I don't really think that he did it in the best fashion possible. But still, each of the characters felt cardboard cutouty, really. They felt like they were there for a purpose, and once they'd fulfilled their purpose, Murakami was really kind of done with them, and he didn't want to explore the characters outside of what we were being shown, and that really disappointed me. Especially when he is supposed to be such a grand storyteller. Maybe Murakami had plans that I did not know. This was my first Murakami, and I may get other books of his out of the library in future, but he is by no means an author whose work I am interested in going and grabbing straight away off any shelf. So yes, that is Kafka on the Shore. If you have read it and would like to discuss it, please feel free to do so in the comments. If you are, after moving along from fantasy into more literary fiction, then you might not be going far wrong by getting this book, but otherwise I don't really understand why it is so acclaimed. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, that is all.